So what happens when a court document, just 3 simple pages, ignites a huge constitutional fight? Today, we're diving into an appellate brief with a truly shocking claim that the court order that tore a mother away from her kids should have never existed at all. And it raises some really serious questions about how our justice system is supposed to work. And this is not just some dry legal argument. Not at all. According to the court filings, the real-world cost here is just staggering. We're talking more than 5 years. Let that sink in. 5 continuous years that a mother has been separated from her children, and it all traces back to this one document. And that really brings us to the absolute heart of the matter, doesn't it? It's the central question of this whole explainer. It's a challenge that goes right to the core of a court's power and, frankly, the integrity of the entire process. All right, so let's start with the focal point of this whole thing. It's a 3-page custody order from an Illinois court dated April 27th, 2022. Now, on the surface, it just looks like it transfers custody. But the petitioner's brief argues it's something way more sinister. Basically, a ghost document with devastating real-world power. The entire case is built on this really powerful legal idea, void ab initio. It's Latin and it means void from the very beginning. Now, this is key. The argument isn't that the judge just made a mistake and the order should be appealed. No, the argument is that the order was a complete legal phantom, a total nothing, from the second it was signed. So the brief builds its case on 2 giant pillars of the law. First, jurisdiction. Did the court even have the right to make the call in the first place? And second, due process, which is asking whether the absolute basic rules of fairness were just completely thrown out the window. Okay, so first up, jurisdiction. The legal challenge here is pretty blunt. It says the Illinois court had absolutely no legal authority to issue a custody order in April of 2022. It was, simply put, the wrong court at the wrong time. So what even is jurisdiction? Well, it's just a court's legal power to do anything. And the analogy here really nails it. A referee in Illinois can't throw a penalty flag in a football game happening down in Florida. The brief is arguing that's exactly what happened in this case. This timeline really lays out the argument so clearly. Just look at the dates. The entire family, mom, dad, kids, had all moved to Florida by December 2021. And then, get this, the Illinois court itself even ordered the case to be transferred to Florida in February 2022. And yet, 2 months after that, it turns around and issues this massive, life-changing custody order. Now, this law, the UCCJEA, I know it's a mouthful, is at the center of this whole thing. But the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. It sets clear rules for which state gets to decide a custody case, basically to stop this exact kind of chaos from happening. And the petitioner's point is crystal clear. The law says a court loses jurisdiction when the child and both parents move out of state. And according to that timeline we just saw, that's exactly what had happened long before that April order. Okay, so that was the first big legal pillar. But the second one, well, you could argue it's even more fundamental. We're moving beyond which court has power and into the constitutional guarantee of fairness that every single person is supposed to have. We're talking about due process. Due process. It's one of the absolute cornerstones of American law. It's the promise that the system will tell you the rules, tell you when court is happening, and give you a fair chance to make your case. The legal argument here is that this fundamental promise wasn't just bent, it was completely shattered. I mean, just look at this list from the legal filing. It describes a total collapse of procedure. No formal notice sent about the hearing, nothing in the court's own public records to show the mother was even told about it. She wasn't there. She had no lawyer there. The brief basically paints this picture of a hearing happening in an empty room, leading to an order that took her children away without her even knowing it was happening. And this is where it just gets unbelievable. The brief claims the first time the petitioner ever heard about this order wasn't from the court. It wasn't from a lawyer. It came almost 2 months later in this taunting email from her ex-mother-in-law, who wasn't even an official party to the case. This, the petitioner argues, is just a profound failure of the court's most basic, fundamental duty. So you might be thinking, okay, if the order is legally void, like the filing claims, what's the big deal? Well, this part of the brief is where we connect all those abstract legal arguments to the very real, devastating, and ongoing consequences that have cascaded from this one single piece of paper. The brief shows this chilling domino effect. It argues that this legally non-existent order was then taken down to Florida and used like a weapon. It was used to block all contact with her kids, to enforce financial penalties, and even to get her barred from setting foot on her own children's school grounds. One single, allegedly void document set off this terrible chain reaction. And the specific harms that are laid out in these court documents are just severe. The order has allegedly been used to garnish her wages as a teacher, to threaten her driver's license, to block her from getting school and medical records. And maybe worst of all, the brief claims that Florida courts have just shut down her attempts to be heard, over and over, all based on this one disputed order from Illinois. And it all comes back to this, a quote directly from the legal brief. This isn't just about technical rules and legal procedures. The argument is that this is about violating one of the oldest and most fundamental rights that we have, and it's about the irreversible loss of years of a family's life that can never be gotten back. So in the end, this appellate brief is doing more than just asking a court to throw out an order. It's asking a much, much bigger question. When the bedrock rules of fairness, of notice, of just being in the right court, when all of that is allegedly ignored, what's even left of the idea of justice? This case, as it's laid out in the filings, is a really stark look at how the very system designed to protect families can, when it breaks down, become the thing that hurts them the most.